She didn't belong there, and she knew it from the second she stepped into the restaurant. Not because anyone said anything. No one looked at her twice. But the white linen, the impossibly soft lighting, the glint of silverware that cost more than her rent, it all whispered in her ear. You don't fit. She swallowed, gripping the strap of her thrifted bag a little tighter as the hostess approached, polished smile and clipped tone in place. Good evening. Welcome to Murray. Do you have a reservation? Her voice caught.
Yes.
It should be under Emily Grant. The hostess scanned the list, nodded, and gestured for her to follow. Emily's boots echoed on the marble floor, each step a reminder that this was a mistake. But it wasn't her mistake. Her best friend, Claire, had begged her to take her place on this blind dinner setup with one of Claire's clients. Just go, Claire had said. I can't make it, and she's expecting someone. Just be charming. It's a free meal. You'll never see her again. That was the plan. Dinner. Leave. Forget. But plans are delicate things. And fate doesn't care for delicacy. The hostess stopped at a secluded corner booth, the kind reserved for regulars or VIPs, and gestured. Your guest is already here. Emily blinked, catching only a glimpse of dark hair, an angular jaw, and the silhouette of someone leaning back with an air of bored elegance. Before she could adjust, the woman looked up, and the world did a sharp, unforgiving tilt. The woman was stunning. Not just beautiful in a classic, magazine cover way, but arrestingly composed, cool, and almost cold in the way the very rich always seemed. Her eyes met Emily's, and something unreadable flickered behind them. You're not Claire, the woman said smoothly, voice low, velvet-wrapped steel. Emily froze. This wasn't Claire's date. Something was wrong. But instead of backing away, her mouth betrayed her.
No.
I'm not. A pause stretched between them. Then the woman gave a small, almost imperceptible smirk. Well, sit down anyway. You've come this far. And just like that, Emily's legs moved on their own. She slid into the booth across from her, heartbeat loud in her ears. The woman signaled for a server, never breaking eye contact. Wine. Sure, Emily said, wondering what the hell she was doing. The wine arrived.
Red.
Smooth. Expensive, obviously. The woman sipped it with the ease of someone who probably drank it like water. So, she said, fingers tapping the base of her glass. If you're not Claire, who are you? Emily, she said. Claire's friend. She couldn't make it. The woman raised a brow. And she sent you in her place? Not exactly. She said her date was expecting someone, and it was a last-minute thing. I thought that no one would notice. There was no cruelty in her tone, just amusement. A challenge. Emily's pride prickled. I didn't think it mattered. The woman studied her. Long and tense. You're right, she said finally. It doesn't. The server returned, menus in hand, but the woman waved them off. Bring the usual, she said. Then she turned to Emily. I'm guessing you've never been here. How could you tell?
The boots.
And the fact that you looked like you were ready to bolt the second you walked in. Emily flushed. I didn't mean to intrude. If you want me to leave, I don't. It was firm. Final. The kind of tone people didn't argue with. Emily stared. Why not? Because I was bored. And now I'm not. She smiled, and it changed her whole face.
Softer.
Still sharp, but less lethal. Emily sat back, caught between fascination and confusion. You don't even know me. True. The woman extended a hand across the table. Mara.
Of course her name was Mara.
It was the kind of name that suited women who wore tailored suits and didn't flinch at $1,000 tabs. Emily shook it, feeling the faintest tremor of electricity at the contact. Emily, she repeated, quieter this time. Mara's gaze didn't waver. So, Emily, tell me something true. What? Something real. Not polite. Not rehearsed. Just one thing. Emily blinked. I'm not supposed to be here. Mara's lips curved. Neither am I. And somehow that made it worse. Or better. Emily couldn't tell. The food came elegant dishes she couldn't name, and Mara slid one across to her without asking. The conversation moved, slow at first, then faster. Easy. Addictive. Mara listened like no one ever had. Asked questions that mattered. And Emily found herself saying things she didn't mean to.
Secrets.
Pieces. Moments. Time slipped. Hours vanished. She laughed. Once. Loud and unfiltered. And Mara looked at her like she was sunlight. By the time the check came, not that Emily saw it, Mara was watching her with something unreadable in her eyes again.
Come with me, she said.
Emily blinked. What? I don't want the night to end. Emily hesitated. Her world didn't mix with women like this. Millionaire or not, Mara belonged to a different galaxy. I should go. Mara's jaw shifted slightly. Don't go. Stay with me. And for one breathless second, Emily almost said yes. Emily's breath caught. The words echoed in her head like a song she wasn't supposed to hear. Too intimate, too tempting, too dangerous. Don't go. Stay with me. She should have said no. Should have stood up, offered a polite smile, thanked Mara for the wine and the food and the surreal detour from her ordinary life. But her legs didn't move. Her lips didn't form the words. Something in Mara's voice, quiet, confident, laced with something aching, made it impossible to walk away. Emily stared at her, at the sharp lines of her face softened now by candlelight and something almost vulnerable in her expression, and said the one thing she shouldn't have. Okay. Mara didn't smile, not exactly, but something flickered in her eyes, a spark of satisfaction or relief. She stood, extended a hand, and Emily took it before she could think. Her fingers were warm. Steady. They left the restaurant through a private side entrance, led by a discreet nod from the maitre d'. The car waiting outside wasn't just expensive, it was silent, sleek, and utterly unlike anything Emily had ever stepped into. The door closed behind them with a soft click. Emily sat frozen, her heart pounding in her chest, her eyes flicking to Mara as she gave the driver an address without needing to check her phone. Like she did this every day. Like she knew exactly what she wanted and how to get it. The car pulled away from the curb, and silence settled around them. Not uncomfortable. Not yet.
But charged.
Emily looked down at her hands. This is crazy. Yes, Mara said calmly. And yet, here you are. Emily laughed, nervous. Are you always this persuasive? Only when it matters. That made Emily glance at her. Mara was already looking, her gaze unreadable. Why me? Emily asked. You could have had anyone. You knew I wasn't your date. I don't even belong in a place like that. Mara tilted her head slightly. I didn't want anyone else. And maybe I was curious why someone would be brave, or foolish, enough to sit down with a stranger like it meant nothing. It wasn't bravery, Emily muttered. It was hunger and a free meal. Liar, Mara said softly, and there was something almost fond in her voice. Emily turned to the window, the city blurring past in golden smears. She didn't ask where they were going. She didn't have to. The car slowed in front of a building that screamed quiet wealth. Doormen, black marble lobby, walls of glass. Mara led her in without hesitation. The elevator ride was silent, tension climbing between them with every floor. When the doors opened, they stepped directly into Mara's apartment, if it could even be called that. It was more like an art gallery with a view. Minimalist. Impossibly high ceilings. A skyline so close it felt like you could reach out and touch it. Emily tried not to stare.
Failed.
Mara poured them more wine, handing her a glass without speaking. Emily accepted it, her fingers brushing Mara's again. Static bloomed in her chest. Do you bring all your mistaken dinner guests here? Emily asked, voice light but eyes serious. Mara studied her over the rim of her glass.
No.
I don't bring anyone here. The words landed heavy. Emily didn't know why, but she believed her. The air between them thickened. Something unsaid hovered, electric. Mara stepped closer, slow and deliberate, her gaze never leaving Emily's. She reached up, brushing a loose strand of hair behind Emily's ear. The touch was featherlight, but it set her skin on fire. "You can say no," Mara murmured. "You can walk away. I won't stop you." And for a moment, Emily wanted to. Not because she didn't want this, God, she did, but because she knew how easily she could fall. And falling for someone like Mara would hurt. It always hurt when you didn't belong in their world. But Mara was standing there, open, vulnerable in a way Emily hadn't expected. There were no masks now. No money. No facade. Just two women in a quiet space, the silence between them speaking louder than anything else. Emily reached up, fingers brushing Mara's wrist. "I'm not going anywhere," she said. And Mara closed the space between them. The kiss wasn't rushed. It wasn't desperate. It was slow, exploratory, like a question that had finally found its answer. Emily melted into it, her body responding to every inch of contact, every quiet breath shared. Mara's hands were steady against her back, grounding. Emily's heart was thundering. This was insane, dangerous, but it felt real. It felt right. When they pulled apart, Emily couldn't breathe. Mara rested her forehead against hers. "Stay the night." Emily closed her eyes. "You barely know me." "I know enough." Emily should have said no. She really should have. But her body said yes before her mouth could argue. Later, when the city outside was quiet and the only light came from the moon spilling through the windows, Emily lay beside Mara, awake. She watched the woman sleep, so composed even now, and felt something coil in her chest that terrified her. This wasn't supposed to mean anything. She was supposed to be gone before morning. And yet she wasn't. She wasn't ready to leave. But staying might come at a cost she couldn't afford. Emily woke to the quiet hum of the city far below, her cheek pressed against silk sheets that felt far too indulgent for someone like her. It took her a moment to remember where she was. The unfamiliar ceiling. The faint scent of Mara's perfume lingering in the air. The undeniable warmth on the other side of the bed. Her eyes slid sideways. Mara was already awake, sitting at the edge of the bed, back turned, wrapped in a robe the color of moonlight. Her posture was perfect, every movement deliberate as she sipped coffee from a porcelain cup, gaze fixed on the skyline. Emily swallowed. She didn't know what to say. She didn't know what this was. A mistake? A moment? Something else? "Good morning," she said softly. Mara turned her head slightly, just enough for Emily to catch the profile of her face, still sharp even in the morning light. "You stayed." Emily sat up slowly, sheets clutched around her. "I told you I would." Mara looked at her then, eyes unreadable. People say things they don't mean all the time. Do I look like someone who says things she doesn't mean? Mara's lips curved. Not a full smile. Something smaller, but real.
"No."
"You don't." Silence stretched between them, heavier now. Emily felt it settle on her skin. "What happens now?" she asked because someone had to. Mara took another sip of coffee. "Now, you tell me if last night meant anything to you." Emily blinked. "Are you serious?"
"Deadly."
Emily wrapped the sheet tighter around her and stood, nerves fraying. "Of course it meant something. I don't just—" She stopped herself. "That wasn't nothing." Mara set her cup down, finally standing.
"Good."
"Because it wasn't nothing to me either." Emily searched her face, trying to read between the lines, but Mara was impossible to decipher. She wore control like a second skin. "Do you always do this?" Emily asked. "Invite strangers into your life, then ask them existential questions over coffee?" Mara raised an eyebrow. "Do you always walk into restaurants pretending to be someone else?"
"Touché."
Emily laughed, short and dry. "Okay, fair. I'm not trying to play games with you," Mara said, stepping closer. "I just don't have time for things that don't matter." "And you matter." "For some reason I can't explain, you do." The words hit harder than Emily expected. She looked down, feeling suddenly exposed. "I should go," she said, though she didn't move. Mara's jaw tensed. "If you really want to, I won't stop you." But she didn't mean it. Emily could hear it in her voice. And that made it harder. "What are we doing, Mara?" "I don't know yet," Mara said honestly. Hey, if you're enjoying this story, go ahead and drop a like to help us grow even more. And let me know in the comments, on a scale from 0 to 10, what score would you give this story so far? Your feedback makes all the difference. But I want to find out. Emily exhaled slowly, heart pounding. Okay. Mara stepped closer. You'll stay? Not forever, Emily warned. Just for breakfast. Mara smiled, and it was the first real smile Emily had seen on her.
It did something to her chest.
Something dangerous. Something sweet. They spent the morning wrapped in easy conversation and cautious touches. Emily found herself laughing at Mara's dry, cutting humor, and Mara, surprisingly, seemed to crave her presence, her words, the unfiltered way she existed in a world Mara usually navigated through masks. But the fairy tale bubble broke as soon as Emily's phone buzzed. A message from her landlord. Rent late. Again. Reality always found a way to drag her back down. She stood in Mara's kitchen, staring at the screen, the taste of expensive coffee turning bitter in her mouth. Mara walked in, immediately sensing the shift. Bad news. Emily slipped the phone into her pocket. Nothing important. Mara wasn't fooled. You can tell me. It's just life stuff. I don't live in a glass tower with floor-to-ceiling windows, remember? Mara crossed her arms, leaning against the counter. You don't have to pretend. I know our lives are different. Emily turned on her.
Do you?
Do you really? Mara didn't flinch. I know enough to see you're fighting things I don't understand. But that doesn't mean I don't care. Well, maybe you shouldn't, Emily snapped, immediately regretting it. Mara's expression didn't change, but the tension in the room rose sharply. Do you want me to stop caring? I want. Emily trailed off. What did she want? She didn't know. All she knew was that whatever this was terrifying. Because it was real. Because Mara wasn't like anyone she'd ever met. And because part of her wanted to fall, hard and fast, consequences be damned. But she couldn't afford that.
Not now.
Not with her life barely stitched together. Maybe we rushed this, she said. Maybe last night was too much. Mara stared at her. So, what? You want to forget it? Emily hesitated.
No.
I just think maybe I should go. Mara didn't stop her this time. But as Emily grabbed her coat and opened the door, she heard Mara say something so soft, so raw. It rooted her in place. You're not a mistake, Emily. Emily closed her eyes. And then she left. Outside, the city was cold, and the morning light felt harsher. She kept walking, not looking back. But every step away from Mara felt like a lie. Like she'd just walked out of something that could have meant everything. Emily didn't go home. Not right away. She wandered. Through streets she'd walked 1,000 times before, but that now felt oddly foreign. Everything looked sharper, louder, colder. As if leaving Mara's apartment had stripped a layer of safety from the world. She sat on a park bench as wind bit through her coat, trying to ignore the ache in her chest. It was stupid. They'd only met the night before. One night, one dinner, one kiss. But Mara had felt like a secret she wasn't supposed to find, and now that she'd walked away, it was like trying to pretend she hadn't tasted something real for the first time in years. Her phone buzzed again. Not Mara. Just Claire, finally checking in. Well? Did she show up? Was she hot? Did you survive? Emily didn't answer. She stared at the screen, fingers hovering, then tucked the phone away. She didn't even know what to say. What would she tell Claire? That she'd accidentally sat at the wrong table and ended up spending the night with a woman who looked like she ran empires? That she'd let herself believe for a heartbeat that someone like Mara could want her for more than just a distraction? But it hadn't been just that. Emily knew it in her bones. Mara had looked at her like she mattered, spoken to her like she saw her. And still, she'd walked away. That was what scared her most. Not Mara's world, not the money, not the luxury, but how much she wanted to stay in it. How much she wanted Mara. She made it home eventually. A shoebox apartment with peeling paint and a heater that hissed like it held a grudge. The kind of place Mara had probably never stepped foot in. She dropped her bag, kicked off her boots, and fell into bed fully dressed. Sleep didn't come. Not for hours. When it did, it was restless. Mara's face haunted her dreams, along with that voice, low and steady. You're not a mistake, Emily. Days passed. Emily went back to work at the bookstore, tried to disappear into the comfort of routine. Customers, receipts, restocking shelves. But nothing felt normal. Every quiet moment felt too loud. Every evening felt too long. She didn't hear from Mara. Not a text. Not a call. And the silence screamed. Maybe Mara had taken the hint. Maybe she regretted letting someone like Emily into her life. Maybe that one night had only ever meant something to Emily. On the fourth day, Claire stormed into the store. Okay, what the hell happened? Emily looked up from the register, exhausted. What are you talking about? I just got off a call with one of my biggest clients, and she asked me why I stood her up. I told her I sent my friend in my place. She asked for your last name. Emily froze. She called you?
Yes.
Because apparently, after you left her apartment like some kind of romantic martyr, she's been trying to find you and failing. Emily's heart stuttered. She was looking for me? Yes, you idiot. Claire folded her arms. Want to tell me why you didn't say anything? Emily slumped back against the counter. Because I panicked. Because it felt too good to be real. Because she's her. And I'm just me. Claire rolled her eyes. God, that's dramatic even for you. Do you like her? Emily didn't answer.
She didn't have to.
Then fix it, Claire said. Go to her. I don't even know how. She's literally a billionaire. Google her. And so she did. That night, alone in her room, Emily opened her laptop and typed Mara's full name. Articles. Interviews. Awards. Photos of her in sharp suits, speaking at panels, posing at galas. Powerful. Untouchable. Until she found one article from 3 years ago, brief, almost forgotten, mentioning a charity gala she hosted in partnership with a local youth foundation. A gala that was being held again this weekend. Tomorrow night. Emily's fingers hovered. It was a long shot. But maybe she could see her again. Even if it was just to say what she couldn't say before. She didn't sleep much that night either. The next evening, she stood across the street from the event venue, stomach in knots. The building was glass and gold and impossible, a palace dropped in the middle of the city. She almost turned back 3 times. But something deeper kept her rooted.
She walked in.
No invitation. No gown. Just her favorite black dress and all the nerve she could gather. Security eyed her, but didn't stop her. She slipped through the crowd unnoticed. Until she wasn't. Mara stood across the room, speaking to someone in a navy suit, and when her eyes landed on Emily, the words died on her lips. The world narrowed. People moved. Lights shifted. But all Emily could see was Mara, her expression unreadable, her glass paused midair. Emily's feet moved before her brain caught up. She crossed the floor, heart threatening to explode, every doubt screaming at her. But she stopped in front of Mara anyway. Hi, she said, breathless. Mara set her glass down. You came. You looked for me, Emily said. I had to. For a long moment, neither of them moved. Then Mara said, You left. I was scared. So was I. Emily blinked. You don't look like someone who gets scared. I'm scared right now. Emily stepped closer. Then let's be scared together. Mara reached out slowly, fingers brushing Emily's. Stay this time. I'm not going anywhere, Emily whispered. And the way Mara looked at her then, like the chaos of the world had finally stilled, made her feel like maybe, just maybe, they were both exactly where they were supposed to be. Mara didn't speak right away. Her fingers closed around Emily's as if confirming she was real, like the moment might vanish if she looked away. Emily stood still under her gaze, the noise of the gala melting into a distant hum. All the sharp edges that Mara usually wore like armor seemed to soften as she studied her, and for a brief second, neither of them belonged to this room. Come with me, Mara said quietly, and Emily followed. They weaved through the crowd, unnoticed or ignored, until Mara led her into a private corridor. A security guard gave Mara a respectful nod before opening a side door, revealing a quiet lounge lit only by the low amber glow of wall sconces. The door shut behind them, and silence settled like a fragile thread. Emily could hear her own heartbeat. Mara turned to face her fully, arms crossed, not in defense, but in restraint. "Why did you really come tonight?" she asked, voice calm but low, as if afraid of the answer. Emily hesitated, her throat tight. "Because I couldn't stop thinking about you. Because I walked away from something that felt like the beginning of something real, and I couldn't live with the thought that I ruined it before it even had a chance." Mara's expression flickered, subtle but unmistakable. "I thought I scared you off." "You did," Emily admitted. "But it wasn't you. It was me. I'm not used to feeling that much, that fast. And you? What about me?" Emily exhaled. "You make it worse. And better. All at once." Mara's eyes didn't waver. "You make me want things I forgot I could want." The words hung there, suspended in the silence between them, charged with something so raw that Emily had to look away. "I don't know how to do this," Emily whispered. "I don't know how to be with someone like you without feeling like I'm going to break." Mara stepped closer. "Then we'll learn. Together." Emily lifted her eyes. "What if I disappoint you? What if I disappoint you?" Mara countered, her voice almost tender. "You think I have everything, but you don't know what it cost me to build this life. What I had to become to survive it. There's nothing perfect about me, Emily." "You still terrify me," Emily said, half laughing, half breaking. "Good," Mara replied. "Because you terrify me too." Something cracked open in both of them then. A mutual surrender. A quiet truce between their fears. Mara reached out and touched Emily's cheek, her thumb brushing lightly along her skin. "You came back," she said again, softer this time. "That has to mean something." Emily leaned into her touch. "It means everything." And then Mara kissed her. This kiss was different from the first, less exploratory, more certain, threaded with urgency and anchored by the ache of everything unsaid. Emily's hands found Mara's waist, gripping her like she was afraid to lose her again. Mara responded in kind, pulling her close, deepening the kiss until there was nothing else in the world but the warmth of mouths meeting, breathing, needing. When they parted, breathless, Mara rested her forehead against Emily's. "Come home with me." Emily hesitated. Not because she didn't want to, but because she did. So much it hurt. "Mara, no expectations," Mara said. "I just want you near me. No pretending. No disappearing. Just you." Emily nodded slowly. "Okay." The ride back to Mara's penthouse was silent, but charged. Emily stared out the window, her fingers laced with Mara's on the seat between them.
She didn't speak. She didn't have to.
When they stepped into the apartment, something felt different. The lights were dim, the city stretched out before them, but it wasn't the view Emily looked at. It was Mara. She was watching her with something intense in her eyes. Not lust. Not even affection. Something closer to awe. Emily set her coat down and turned, unsure of what came next. "Mara, I don't want to lose you again," Mara said suddenly, voice tight. "So don't let me." The words knocked the air from Emily's lungs. She stepped closer, resting a hand against Mara's chest, feeling the wild rhythm of her heart. "Then don't give me a reason to run." "I won't," Mara whispered, "but you have to let me try." They ended up on the couch, tangled in each other's warmth, talking in murmurs long into the night. No labels. No plans. Just pieces of truth traded like currency. Emily told Mara about the bookstore, the nights she couldn't sleep, the dreams she buried years ago. Mara told her about her mother, the expectations she'd fought, the loneliness that success never managed to erase. Sometime after midnight, Emily fell asleep with her head on Mara's chest, and for the first time in a long time, Mara didn't feel alone. But in the quietest hours of the morning, when the city was a blur of muted light, Mara stood by the window, her phone in hand, a message from her assistant glowing on the screen. "Your father's legal team reached out again. They want to settle." She stared at the text, jaw tense. The past she never spoke of was creeping closer, and she didn't know how long she could keep that world from touching Emily. She turned back to watch the woman asleep on her couch, the only thing that had felt real in years, and wondered how long the truth could stay buried before it tore them both apart. Emily woke before the sun rose, the soft light barely creeping through the penthouse windows, casting a silver glow across the polished floor. For a moment, she didn't know where she was. The unfamiliar smell of linen and cedarwood, the warmth pressed against her back, the steady rhythm of another breath so close to her, it all pulled her gently back to reality. Mara's arm was draped over her waist, their legs tangled beneath the blanket, and for the first time in what felt like forever, Emily didn't feel like she was in the wrong place. She didn't feel like she was taking up space she hadn't earned. She felt wanted. No, she felt chosen. Carefully, she turned in Mara's arms, eyes scanning the woman's face, peaceful in sleep, but still somehow composed. Her features were softened now, stripped of the public polish she wore like armor. This was a version of Mara no one else saw. Emily knew it without question, and it terrified her. Because if she let herself fall deeper into this, and God, she already was, what would happen when it all collapsed? What would happen when the reality of who Mara was collided with the reality of who Emily wasn't? But then Mara stirred, eyelids fluttering open, gaze settling immediately on her. "Good morning," she said, voice husky with sleep. Emily's breath caught. "Hi." They stayed like that for a while, wrapped in the quiet intimacy of a space too fragile to name, until Mara reached up, brushed her knuckles softly along Emily's jaw. "What are you thinking?" Emily hesitated. "That I'm waiting for the moment this stops feeling real." Mara's smile was slow, but it didn't reach her eyes. "It feels real to me too." But even as she said it, something in her shifted. Subtle. A flicker of distance where closeness had just been. Emily noticed. She didn't push, but she felt it. The change. The crack in the foundation they hadn't even finished building. Later, as they moved around the kitchen together, Mara making coffee, Emily stealing slices of fruit from the counter, Emily tried to ignore the silence that had crept in. It wasn't tension. Not yet. But it was weight. And she didn't know where it came from. "Do you have meetings today?" she asked, trying to sound casual. "A few," Mara replied, pouring the coffee with practiced ease. "But nothing urgent. I should probably stop by the bookstore later. I've already missed a few shifts." Mara looked at her, and for a second, there was something almost regretful in her expression. "You don't have to explain yourself to me." "I know," Emily said. "But I want to." That softened something. Mara reached out, brushing Emily's hair behind her ear. "I like that you're here." Emily smiled, but part of her was still watching, still listening for the undercurrent she couldn't quite name. They spent the morning together, bodies brushing in the kitchen, laughter slipping into stolen glances, the kind of intimacy that felt like a secret being written in real time. But Mara's phone kept buzzing. Emails. Notifications. One Emily noticed, from a contact labeled simply Law Office. Mara ignored it, but her posture changed every time it lit up. By early afternoon, Emily stood near the window, watching the city move below, when she finally asked, "Is everything okay?" Mara didn't answer right away. Then, "It's nothing you need to worry about." Emily turned slowly. "That's not what I asked." Mara's gaze flicked to hers. "It's just business. But it's affecting you. It's complicated. Try me." Mara set her cup down, walked to the window beside her, but didn't look at her. "My father and I haven't spoken in years. He's trying to force something. A settlement. A re-entry into my life, whether I want it or not." "And do you?" Emily asked gently. Mara looked at her then, and the answer was carved into the tension in her jaw. "No," Emily reached for her hand, squeezing it. "Then tell him no." "It's not that simple," Mara murmured. "When someone like him decides to push, the entire world leans with him. There are legal threats, financial leverage, memories I've spent a lifetime bearing." Emily felt the pain under her words like a pulse. "You don't have to face it alone." Mara blinked, visibly moved, and for a moment, it seemed like she might let that wall down fully.
But then her phone buzzed again.
And this time she answered it. "Excuse me," she said softly. Emily nodded, watching her disappear down the hallway. The call lasted 15 minutes. When Mara returned, her expression was unreadable. "I have to go to the office."
Now.
"Yes." "Is everything?" "I just have to handle it," Mara said, reaching for her coat. Her voice was calm, but distant. "Stay as long as you'd like." And just like that, she was gone. Emily stood in the stillness Mara left behind, the space suddenly too quiet, too wide. She wandered through the apartment, unsure of what to do, what she was allowed to touch, where she was allowed to be. She ended up on the couch, knees pulled to her chest, Mara's scent lingering in the cushions. And even though she was surrounded by luxury, by comfort, by the weight of everything Mara had built, Emily felt completely out of place. By the time night fell, she hadn't heard from Mara. Not a text, not a call, not a word. She left a note on the kitchen counter. "Didn't want to overstay. Call me if you want me to come back." Then she walked out, alone. Emily didn't cry on the subway. Not because she didn't want to, her throat was tight, her eyes hot, but because she didn't want to fall apart surrounded by strangers. She stared out the window as the city blurred past, her fingers curled into fists inside her coat pockets. She told herself it didn't mean anything, that Mara was busy, that billionaires didn't operate on normal timelines. But none of those lies helped ease the feeling that she'd been shut out of something she never really had access to in the first place. At home, everything felt smaller. Her apartment was cold, the radiator clicking like it had a grudge, and the silence was unbearable. She curled up in bed, still wearing Mara's sweatshirt, trying not to overthink the silence. But as the hours passed, her phone stayed dark. The next day, she went to work and said nothing.
Claire noticed anyway.
"Did something happen?" she asked, stacking a pile of returns. Emily forced a smile. "It's fine. You're wearing that I ran into my ex, and they looked perfect" expression. "Did she ghost you?" "No," Emily said quickly. "She didn't ghost me." Claire raised an eyebrow. "But she disappeared."
She said she had to handle something.
"It's complicated." Claire leaned against the counter. "You like her?" Emily didn't answer. Claire nodded. "So here's the thing. When someone like Mara, someone powerful, used to control, starts pulling away, it's usually because they're afraid. Not because they don't care. Or because they realize I don't belong in their world," Emily muttered. Claire gave her a look. "Stop. You're doing that thing again. The 'I'm not enough' speech no one wants to hear. You are enough. And if she doesn't see that, it's her loss." Emily nodded, but her chest still ached. That night, Mara finally called. Emily stared at the screen when her name lit up. For a moment, she didn't move. Then she answered. "Hey." "You left," Mara said. Her voice was calm. Too calm. "I didn't know if I should stay." "I told you to." "You didn't say anything." "Because I didn't know what to say." Silence stretched between them like glass. Emily sat on the edge of her bed, fingers trembling. "Are you okay?" Mara exhaled slowly. "No," Emily closed her eyes. "Do you want to talk about it?" "Not over the phone." "Then tell me where you are." Mara hesitated. "I'm at my place." "Do you want me to come?" Another pause. Then, "Yes." Emily didn't think. She threw on her coat and left, heart racing. When she arrived, Mara was waiting at the door. She looked tired. Not physically. Mara never looked anything less than elegant, but emotionally.
Worn.
Fragile in a way Emily had never seen before. "Hi," Emily said, suddenly uncertain. "Hi," Mara replied. She stepped aside. "Come in." Emily entered slowly, unsure of what she was walking into. The lights were low, the apartment quiet. Mara led her to the living room, where they sat on opposite ends of the couch like they didn't know how to be close anymore. Finally, Mara spoke. "My father's trying to force a settlement that would put me back under his control. Not legally, not directly, but financially. He wants to merge his assets into my company, make it look like a family reconciliation. The board is pressuring me to agree. Publicly, it would look good. And privately? Privately, it would destroy me. Emily nodded slowly. Why haven't you told anyone? Because vulnerability is weakness in my world. Because if I let them see me bleed, they'll use it. I'm not them, Emily said quietly. Mara looked at her.
No.
You're not. So, let me be something different. Mara's eyes closed briefly. When she opened them again, there was a storm behind them. I don't know how to let people in. Start with me. Emily moved closer, carefully, as if Mara might flinch. You don't have to be strong all the time. Not with me. Mara didn't pull away. She let Emily take her hand. I'm scared, she whispered. Me too, Emily said. But I'd rather be scared with you than safe without you. That cracked something open. Mara leaned in, pressing her forehead to Emily's. I'm going to fight him, but it's going to get messy. There will be press. Rumors. You might be dragged into it. I don't care. You should. Maybe, Emily said. But I don't. They stayed like that for a long moment, breathing the same air. And then Mara kissed her. Not gently, not cautiously, but with the kind of desperate need that came from nights spent alone with too many thoughts. Emily responded in kind, fingers in her hair, heart pounding. It wasn't about sex. It wasn't about comfort. It was about wanting, about choosing each other again. Even when it was hard. Especially when it was hard. When they finally pulled apart, Emily rested her head on Mara's shoulder. I don't want to lose this, she whispered. You won't, Mara said. But her voice shook. The next morning, they had coffee together, quiet and close. Emily left for work with a kiss on her cheek and a promise to come back that night. But halfway through the afternoon, Claire stormed into the bookstore, holding her phone out like it was on fire. Emily, you need to see this. Emily took the phone. On the screen was a gossip site headline in bold letters. Mara Halden's secret girlfriend revealed. Struggling bookseller caught in the middle of billion-dollar family feud. Below it, a grainy photo of her, taken from outside Mara's building, walking out the door the night she left. Her face, her name, her life, exposed. Emily stared at the screen, her chest hollowing. How? They must have followed her. Or you. Emily's phone buzzed in her pocket. She didn't need to look to know it was Mara. But this time, she didn't pick up. Emily sat in the break room, phone heavy in her hands, the headlines still glowing back at her like a threat. Her face, her real face, plastered across the internet, pulled from the shadows of Mara's world and thrown into the harsh light of public curiosity. There were already hundreds of comments, most of them brutal. Troll. Some speculated that she was a gold digger, some called her a nobody clinging to power. A few were worse, digging through her online history, mocking her appearance, her job, even her neighborhood. Claire hovered nearby, silent now, her earlier fire cooled into worry. You need to talk to her, she said eventually. She didn't do this, Emily said flatly. I know she didn't. Then why aren't you answering her calls? Emily looked at her phone again. 3 missed calls. 2 texts. All from Mara. Please call me. I didn't know they were watching. I'm so sorry. But sorry didn't erase what had already been done. Sorry didn't pull her identity back into privacy, didn't undo the public branding of her as the girl Mara Halden was sleeping with. Emily's hands trembled as she stood. I need to get out of here. Claire didn't stop her. She just nodded, her gaze tight with concern. Outside, the air was sharp, almost metallic. Emily walked without direction, her boots hitting the sidewalk like they were trying to punch back against the chaos unfolding around her. At first, she avoided her phone, but eventually, curiosity won over fear. She searched Mara's name again. A press statement had gone out, brief, professional, cold. Ms. Halden has no comment on the personal matters currently being circulated by media outlets. We ask for privacy during this time. No denial. No confirmation. Just distance. Clean and calculated. It didn't even mention Emily's name. It was like she'd already been erased. Her stomach dropped. She was still staring at the screen when her phone buzzed again.
Mara.
She let it ring once.
Twice.
Then slowly she answered. Emily. Her voice. Just hearing it broke something. You saw it? Emily asked, voice tight.
Yes.
I'm so sorry. You didn't say my name. Mara went silent. The statement. You didn't even acknowledge me. I didn't write that statement, Mara said. My PR team issued it before I even had the chance to respond. But you let it go out. Emily, do you know what they're saying about me? Do you know what it feels like to be reduced to a headline? To have my entire existence turned into a talking point because I made the mistake of trusting you. Mara's voice cracked. I know. I do. And I'm trying to fix it.
How?
Emily snapped. By pretending I don't exist? By keeping you safe. I don't want safe, Emily hissed. I want truth. I want to know I mattered enough for you to say my name. A beat of silence. You do matter, Mara whispered. You matter. So much I didn't know how to protect you without hurting you more. Emily closed her eyes, tears hot behind them. Then maybe we both should have stopped before it ever got this far. Don't say that. Why not? Because I can take everything else, my father, the press, the lawsuits, but I can't take losing you. The silence between them was raw, ragged. Emily wiped at her face, hating how much she still wanted her. I need time. I'll give you time, Mara said, voice barely audible. But I'm not giving up. The call ended. Emily stood there, phone at her side, the city pulsing around her like nothing had changed, except everything had. By the time she made it home, there were 2 reporters outside her building. One called her name as she passed.
She didn't stop.
She didn't look. Inside, her phone buzzed again. This time, it was a message from her landlord. I've been getting calls. I don't want this kind of attention around the building. We'll talk at the end of the month. Her hands went cold. She tossed her phone onto the couch and stared at the wall. Her life was unraveling at the seams, and all because she let herself fall for someone who lived in a world that could destroy people like her without blinking. She didn't sleep that night.
She didn't eat.
The next morning, she called in sick and turned off her phone. But silence wasn't safety. And by the 3rd day, someone posted a video. Emily leaving Mara's building. It had nearly 1 million views by the end of the afternoon. The comments this time were worse. They picked her apart like vultures. Her clothes. Her posture. The way she held herself. Strangers drawing conclusions about her character from 3 seconds of shaky footage. And still, she didn't hear from Mara. Not until that night. A knock on her door.
Quiet.
Careful. Emily froze. She stared at it for a long time before moving. When she opened it, Mara stood there, dressed in black. No makeup. Hair down. She looked nothing like the version of herself the world saw. She looked like the woman who'd whispered, "Don't go," that first night. "You shouldn't be here," Emily said, voice hoarse. Mara didn't speak. She held out her phone, showing Emily a photo. A new headline. Mara Halden declares relationship. Her name is Emily. She's not a mistake. Emily stared at it. Then at Mara. You did that? Yes. Your board is going to hate you. They already do. The press? They'll move on. Eventually. And your father? Mara's voice was steel. He can burn. Emily didn't speak. She didn't cry. She just reached out and pulled Mara into her apartment and into her arms. Emily didn't say anything at first. She just stood there in the middle of her apartment with Mara in her arms, her fingers gripping the back of Mara's coat like she was afraid she'd vanish if she let go. The silence between them wasn't empty. It was full. Full of everything they hadn't said in the past 3 days. Full of everything the world had tried to rip away. When she finally pulled back, she searched Mara's face for any sign of regret. There wasn't one. Only exhaustion, defiance, and something else, something that looked dangerously close to devotion. You really did it, Emily whispered. Mara nodded once. I had to. Emily stepped away slowly, turning to look at the photo Mara had shown her. The headline was already everywhere. Her name, her actual name, was on the homepage of a dozen news sites. The quote in bold letters underneath. She's not a mistake. Her throat tightened. Do you know what this means? Yes, Mara said. It means no more hiding. Emily turned to her. It means you'll be dragged. Your company. Your reputation. Let them drag me, Mara said simply. I'm done letting fear decide how I live. You're going to lose things. Then they were never mine to begin with. Emily stared at her like she was someone new and familiar all at once.
And maybe she was.
Mara had always felt untouchable, invulnerable. But standing here now, stripped of her armor, choosing Emily with the whole world watching, she'd never looked more real. I don't know how to do this, Emily said softly. Be public. Be scrutinized. We'll learn. Together. The words echoed a promise they'd made before, but now it felt heavier.
Truer.
Emily nodded, then moved to the couch. Mara followed. They sat in silence for a while, the hum of the city outside the only sound between them. Emily rested her head on Mara's shoulder, feeling the tension still coiled in her body. There's something terrifying about being seen, she murmured. Not just by the world, but by you. Mara's arm wrapped around her. That's what intimacy is, isn't it? Letting someone see the parts you don't even let yourself look at. It's never been this hard, Emily admitted. Then maybe that means it's worth it. That night, Mara stayed. Not in a penthouse, not behind locked gates or tinted windows, but in Emily's tiny, cluttered apartment where the heater groaned and the walls were too thin. They shared takeout on the floor. Watched bad television. Mara sat cross-legged in her designer blouse, dipping spring rolls into sweet chili sauce, laughing at jokes that made no sense, and Emily watched her like she couldn't believe she was real. But as the night wore on, reality crept back in. Mara's phone rang twice, calls she ignored. The third time, she glanced at the screen and exhaled sharply. I need to take this. She stood and stepped out into the hallway. Emily tried not to listen, but the walls were thin. And Mara's voice wasn't low. I already made the statement. I'm not walking it back.
Pause.
Then let them vote. If the board wants me out, they can say it to my face. Another pause. Longer. Colder.
No.
I won't break her heart to save my image. Emily froze. Her breath caught. Mara's voice dropped. Don't contact me again unless it's through legal. Then she hung up. When she returned, her expression was unreadable. Emily looked at her carefully. That was your board? One of them. What happens now? Mara sat down beside her. They'll try to push me out. Claim I'm unstable. That I'm distracted. Because you're in love with someone they can't control? Mara didn't answer immediately. Then, yes. Emily's heart flipped. They'll come after me next.
Let them, Mara said.
They'll lose. Emily searched her face. Are you scared? Terrified. Then why are you still here? Because being with you is the first thing that's ever made me feel like I'm not alone. The room spun for a moment. Everything felt too bright, too exposed. Mara, I know it's fast. I know it's messy. But I'm not walking away. Not unless you ask me to. Emily shook her head slowly. I'm not asking. The kiss that followed wasn't perfect. It was raw, desperate. Teeth and breath, and the ache of everything crashing in at once. It felt like saying I'm still here. I still want this, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. But the morning after, everything changed. Emily woke up to pounding on her door. She reached for her robe, heart racing. Mara stirred beside her, groggy. The knocking didn't stop. Emily opened the door to find her landlord standing there with an envelope in hand and a face carved from stone. You've got until the end of the month. This is a quiet building. I can't have this kind of circus out front every day. This isn't fair, Emily said, trying to stay calm. You're punishing me for being in the news. I'm not punishing you, he snapped. I'm protecting my tenants. He handed her the envelope and walked away. Emily stood there, stunned. Mara appeared behind her. What is it? Emily handed her the eviction notice. Mara read it in silence, her jaw tightening. We'll fight this. No, Emily said. I'm not going to spend the next month in a war with my landlord. I'll figure something out. You don't have to do it alone. I know. but her voice didn't sound sure. Later that day, Mara returned to her company headquarters for the first time since the press broke. She walked into the boardroom with her chin high, shoulders squared. The entire table of men stared at her like she was already gone. She didn't flinch. "Let's make this quick," she said. "If you're going to stab me in the back, at least have the dignity to look me in the eye while you do it." The chairman cleared his throat. "You've brought a distraction into the company."
No, Mara said.
"I've brought humanity. It's not personal. It never is until it is." She tossed a folder onto the table. "That's my counteroffer. I step back for 6 months. Publicly. You get your clean face, I get my company back when this dies down. But I'm not walking away. Not now. Not ever." Silence. Then, slowly, one of the younger board members nodded. Another followed. A third. The chairman looked at her, displeased, but boxed in. "Fine." Mara didn't smile. She didn't thank them. She stood and walked out like a woman who had just bought herself time. But as she exited the building, her phone buzzed. A new message. From a number she didn't recognize. It was a single line. "You think you can protect her? You don't know what we know." Mara's blood ran cold. Mara stared at the message, her fingers tightening around the phone until her knuckles turned white. "You think you can protect her? You don't know what we know." It wasn't just a threat. It was personal, targeted, aimed like a dagger at the one place she couldn't afford to be vulnerable, Emily. Her first instinct was rage. Her second was fear. But she buried both and moved quickly, forwarding the message to her security team, demanding a trace. She didn't wait for their response. She was already calling Emily. No answer. Again. Voicemail. She left one anyway. "Call me the second you get this. Don't go anywhere. Don't talk to anyone. Just call me." She was in the back of the car before she even realized she'd left the building, giving her driver Emily's address in a clipped tone that brokered no argument. Traffic felt eternal. Every red light a reminder that she wasn't in control. That no amount of money or power could bend time. When she arrived, Emily opened the door with wide, confused eyes. "Mara? We have to go," Mara said, stepping inside without waiting. "Now." Emily blinked. "What's happening?" "Someone sent me a message."
About you.
"I don't know what they have, but I'm not taking chances." "Wait, slow down. What kind of message?" Mara pulled out her phone, handed it to her, and watched Emily's face change as she read the words. "What does this mean?" Emily asked, voice shaking. "It means someone's digging into your past."
Or mine.
"Or both." "But I don't have anything." "Everyone has something," Mara said. "Even if they don't know it." "Mara, please just pack a bag. We're not staying here." Emily hesitated, but the fear in Mara's eyes was real. And that was enough. She moved. 15 minutes later, they were back in the car, Emily clutching a duffel bag and Mara texting her head of security with new instructions. "Where are we going?" Emily asked. "Somewhere they can't follow." They didn't go to Mara's penthouse. That was the first place anyone would look. Instead, they drove 3 hours out of the city, down winding roads and through dense forest until they reached a lake house Mara owned but never used. It was beautiful.
Quiet.
Secluded. But it didn't feel like peace. It felt like exile. As soon as they arrived, Mara locked down the security system and activated the remote surveillance feeds. Emily watched her move like a soldier, precise, tense, dangerous. "You've done this before," she said quietly. Mara didn't answer. She didn't have to. Emily sat on the edge of the bed in the master suite while Mara paced the room, phone pressed to her ear. "I want a full report by morning. Whoever sent that message, find them. Use everything." A pause. "And bring me the files from the Halden archives. All of them." Another pause.
"Yes."
"Including my father's." She hung up and turned to Emily, her expression unreadable. "There's something I haven't told you." Emily stood slowly. "Okay." Mara looked down. "My father doesn't just want control of my company. He wants control of the narrative. When I was 21, I signed an NDA after a settlement. It wasn't mine, it was his. but they used me to shield him. Emily's heart dropped. What kind of settlement? He had an employee who accused him of coercion, manipulation. It never made it to court because they paid her off. I was forced to publicly deny everything, say she was lying. I didn't know the truth back then, but I found out later. And you didn't say anything? I was a scared kid trying to survive my family, Mara said. I've lived with that guilt ever since. And now that he sees me happy, visible, he's trying to burn it all down before I can expose him. Emily sat down. Do you think he sent the message? I think he's capable of worse. Silence fell between them, heavier than before. Why didn't you tell me this sooner? Emily asked. Because I didn't want you to see me differently.
I don't, Emily said.
But I wish you'd trusted me with the truth. I'm trusting you now. Emily nodded, but her hands were still shaking. What do? We wait. We breathe. And when the time is right, I fight back. That night, they didn't sleep. Not really. They lay in the same bed, tangled but restless, every creak of the floorboards outside making Emily flinch. At one point, Mara reached for her hand in the dark. If I lose everything, the company, the board, the name, would you still stay? Emily didn't hesitate. Yes. Even if I'm no one? You're already someone, Emily whispered. To me. Mara pulled her close, burying her face in Emily's hair. And for a few hours, they held onto each other like they could stop the world from creeping in.
But the world always finds a way.
The next morning, Mara's security team arrived in a black SUV, faces tense, jaws locked. Her head of security handed her a tablet with a traced information. It was sent from an encrypted server in Europe, he said. We're still working on a full trace, but there's more. He tapped the screen. A folder opened. Photos.
Dozens of them.
Emily and Mara. Together. At the restaurant. At the bookstore. On the street. They've been following us for weeks, he said. And there's something else. He handed her a printed email. Mara scanned it. Her face paled. Emily stepped closer. What is it? Mara looked up, eyes sharp with fury. They're planning to leak your employment file. Everything. Including your mother. Emily froze. My mother? They know she was institutionalized. That she struggled with addiction. They're going to spin it. Make it look like you're unstable. Unfit. That I'm being manipulated by someone from a broken home. Emily felt the world tilt under her feet. That's not fair.
It's not, Mara said.
But it's how they play. Emily sat down hard. I thought I was strong enough for this. But I didn't think they'd come for her. She's been clean for years. That part of my life. I kept it quiet to protect her.
We'll stop it, Mara said.
I'll call in lawyers. Threaten litigation. But Emily was already shaking her head.
No.
If we fight this, they'll dig deeper. They'll twist everything. So, what do you want to do? Emily looked up, her eyes glassy. Maybe we don't give them anything to destroy. What does that mean? A long pause. Then, maybe we end this. Mara stepped back like she'd been struck. You want to end us? I want to protect my mother. And if the only way to do that is to disappear from your life. No, Mara, no. Don't you dare say goodbye to me like this. Then tell me how we win. Mara was silent, because she didn't have an answer. And for the first time, they both realized that love alone might not be enough to survive what was coming. Mara didn't answer right away. She just stared at Emily like the ground had split open between them, and she didn't know whether to leap or let her fall. The silence stretched, thick with panic and disbelief, and when Mara finally spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. You're serious? Emily didn't want to be. Every fiber in her body screamed against it. But she nodded. If I stay, they'll destroy her. They'll turn my life into their weapon. They'll rewrite everything until the people I love are just ammunition in a war I didn't start. Mara moved closer, eyes wild. Then let me protect you. You can't protect me from the cost of being with you. Don't do this, Mara said, voice cracking. Don't say goodbye to me to save me. That's not how this works. Emily turned away, blinking hard. It's the only way I know how to fight back. Walk away before they take everything. They won't. They already are. Emily's hands trembled. They're peeling away my life, Mara. My name, my family, my past. It's all being fed to people who don't care if it's true. They just want a story. And they'll keep going until there's nothing left. Mara's jaw tightened, grief flashing like lightning across her face. Then I'll go public with the truth. I'll expose my father. End him. And he'll make sure to take me down with you. Emily stepped forward, placing her hands on either side of Mara's face. This isn't about not loving you. God, I love you so much it terrifies me. But I can't be the reason your life burns down. And I can't let you be the reason mine does. Emily, Mara breathed, like her name alone could keep her from slipping away. This doesn't have to be the end. Maybe it does. The words were shards in Emily's throat. Maybe we survive this by letting each other go. Mara's arms dropped to her sides, and something broke in her eyes. Say it, she whispered. Emily hesitated. Then, goodbye. It was the hardest word she'd ever spoken. She turned before she could see the wreckage in Mara's face, grabbed her bag, and walked out of the lake house with the sound of her own heartbeat breaking in her ears. Mara didn't follow. The car ride back to the city was silent. No music. No tears. Just numbness. Emily returned to an apartment that no longer felt like home. The eviction was still in place. Her name still flooded the internet. But none of it compared to the weight in her chest, the hollow, aching space where Mara had lived. She turned off her phone, quit her job at the bookstore, packed her things. 2 days later, she was gone. She moved in with Claire, who didn't ask questions, who just handed her tea and gave her space to fall apart. Emily didn't speak Mara's name. She didn't check the news. She didn't look at social media. She tried to forget. But forgetting someone like Mara wasn't possible. Her voice still echoed in her sleep. Her touch lingered like memory. And the worst part wasn't the pain, it was the silence. Mara didn't call, didn't text, didn't chase her. And Emily told herself that was what she wanted. That silence meant Mara respected her decision. That distance meant she cared. But it didn't feel like care. It felt like abandonment, like the kind of love that let go too easily. And that hurt more than anything. Meanwhile, across the city, Mara sat in her office staring out at the skyline, her reflection ghosted in the glass. The board had accepted her temporary leave. Her name was still in the media, but the fire was cooling. Her father had gone silent for now. But none of it mattered. Not without Emily. She had the power, the reputation, the control. But none of it could fill the space Emily had left behind. She'd tried to write the message 100 times. Tried to call. But every time she picked up the phone, she remembered the way Emily looked at her that night, like love wasn't enough to fix what the world had done.
So she said nothing.
Until the silence became unbearable. 1 week.
2.
On the 15th day, Claire found Emily on the couch, half awake, scrolling through job postings. Are you really going to pretend you're okay forever?
Claire asked.
Emily didn't look up. I'm surviving. That's not the same as living. Living hurts. So does loving. But at least it means something. I ended it. And Claire folded her arms. Maybe you were wrong. Emily finally looked up. I did what I had to do.
No.
You did what you thought would hurt less. But you're still hurting, Em. So maybe it's time to stop trying to outrun it. Emily didn't answer. That night, she opened her phone for the first time in 2 weeks. There were no new messages. Nothing from Mara. Her chest tightened. But buried under the silence, there was one missed call. Dated 5 days ago. She stared at it for a long time. Then called back. No answer. She didn't leave a voicemail. She just sat there, staring at the wall, until sleep took her. The next morning, a letter arrived. Hand-delivered. No return address. Just her name written in familiar handwriting. Emily tore it open with trembling hands. The note inside was short.
Bare. Raw.
I let you go because I thought it's what you needed. But not a day has passed where I haven't wanted you back. Tell me it's not too late. Tell me you haven't erased me.
Please.
Emily stared at the page, her throat closing around the words. She didn't know how long she stood there. All she knew was that her heart wasn't done. And maybe, just maybe, neither was Mara's. Emily read the letter again. And again. Her hands trembled as she held it, the paper soft but heavy, like it had weight far beyond its few words. Her heart ached with every line. Tell me it's not too late. Tell me you haven't erased me. She hadn't.
God, she hadn't.
Mara lived inside her still, in the quiet of her mornings, in the way she glanced at the space beside her in bed, in the pull of her chest every time her phone buzzed, and it wasn't her. Emily had tried to forget, had tried to bury the ache beneath practicality, beneath survival. But love doesn't die in silence. It grows louder. She grabbed a pen before she could change her mind. She didn't plan the words. She just let them come. It's not too late. But if we do this again, we don't run. Not from each other, not from the world. I don't want a love that only survives in secret. I want one that survives everything. She folded the note, placed it in an envelope, and didn't wait. She took a cab to Mara's building, heart hammering the whole way. The doorman recognized her immediately. Miss Taylor, Miss Halden isn't in. Can you make sure she gets this? Emily asked, holding out the letter. Of course. She nodded, whispered a thank you, and walked away. The moment the cab pulled from the curb, regret tried to claw its way into her throat. Had she done the right thing? Was it too late already? But it was done. The words were out there now. All she could do was wait. 2 hours later, her phone rang. She didn't recognize the number, but she answered anyway. Emily. Mara's voice was rough, breathless, like she'd run just to say it. I got your letter. Emily's breath caught. Yeah. Come to me. Emily closed her eyes. Where are you? At the place we started. Emily didn't need to ask. She already knew. The restaurant. The one where she'd sat at the wrong table. Where none of this was supposed to happen. Where everything had. She arrived 20 minutes later, stepping into the same warm light, the same hushed elegance. And there she was, Mara, sitting in that same booth, her hair loose around her shoulders, no armor, no mask, just eyes that had waited too long. Emily sat across from her, and neither spoke for a moment. The silence between them was sacred. I almost didn't come, Emily said finally. Mara nodded. I almost didn't ask. Why did you? Because every version of my life without you felt like a lie. Emily's throat tightened. This can't be like before. We can't be half hiding, half bleeding. If we do this, it has to be real.
Loud.
Unapologetic. Mara leaned forward. Then let's be loud. Emily blinked. Even if it means losing people? If someone can't handle who I love, they were never mine to lose. Mara reached for her hand across the table. Emily let her take it. Their fingers intertwined like they'd never been apart. I've missed you, Mara whispered. Every breath. Me too. Can we start again? No, Emily said. But we can keep going. The food came. Neither of them ate. They talked. About the silence. The fear. The things they wished they'd said. Mara apologized, truly, for not fighting sooner, for not choosing her in the ways that mattered most. Emily admitted how scared she'd been, not of Mara, but of becoming someone she didn't recognize in a world that had no mercy for softness. And then, for the first time since everything fell apart, they laughed. It was soft, fragile, but real. When they left, it was raining. Emily tilted her face up, eyes closed. Do you remember what you said that first night? Which part? You told me to stay. Mara looked at her. Are you staying now? Yeah, Emily said, taking her hand. I think I finally am. They walked together, umbrellas forgotten, soaked but glowing. It felt like rebirth, like maybe they could survive the storm. But when Mara's phone rang, that fragile sense of peace cracked. She hesitated before answering. Hello. Her face changed immediately. Emily couldn't hear the other side, but she didn't need to. She could feel the energy shift. When Mara asked,
A pause.
Where is she now? Another pause. I'm on my way. She hung up. Emily stepped closer. What happened? Mara looked at her, color drained. Your mother. What? She collapsed. They think it was a relapse. Emily went still. That's not possible. She's been clean. She's at St. Augustine's, the hospital downtown. Emily didn't wait for anything else.
She ran.
Emily didn't think. She just ran. Through the wet streets, breath caught in her throat, the city blurring around her like static. Her shoes slapped the pavement, soaked through, but she didn't care. All she could hear was the echo of Mara's voice. Your mother collapsed. She barely registered Mara catching up to her, falling into step beside her, silent but steady. When the hospital came into view, Emily didn't pause. She pushed through the doors, eyes scanning the lobby like her heart might stop if someone didn't tell her something now. Rebecca Taylor, she said to the nurse at the front desk, breathless. She was brought in possible overdose or something. Please. The nurse nodded quickly, typing. She's in recovery now. Stable. We're monitoring her. The doctor will be out shortly. Emily sagged against the counter, body catching up to her panic. Mara stood behind her, a quiet wall of support, close but not touching. Emily didn't think she could survive being touched right now. Minutes passed. Or hours. Time folded in on itself. Finally, a woman in scrubs approached, expression professional but kind. Miss Taylor? Yes. Your mother was found unconscious by a neighbor. She had alcohol in her system, enough to be concerning, but not lethal. We also found traces of prescription sedatives. It's unclear if this was intentional or accidental, but her vitals are stabilizing. She's awake now, but disoriented. Emily swallowed, every muscle in her body trembling. Can I see her? Of course. Just one visitor at a time. Emily nodded, barely registering Mara's hand on her arm, grounding her. She walked down the hallway slowly, the sterile light making her skin crawl. When she reached the room, she hesitated at the door. Inside, her mother lay on the hospital bed, pale, hair damp with sweat, eyes closed. She looked small, fragile, like time had folded her into something Emily didn't recognize. Mom, she said softly. Rebecca stirred, eyes fluttering open. They were glassy, unfocused, but when they landed on Emily, something shifted. Emily, I'm here. You shouldn't be. Emily stepped inside, swallowing the lump in her throat. What happened? Rebecca looked away. It was just one drink. I thought I could handle it. And the pills. Her mother closed her eyes. I've been anxious. Couldn't sleep. It wasn't supposed to be like this. Emily sat beside her, hands clenched. Why didn't you call me? Because I didn't want to be your shame again. That broke something. Emily looked down, tears blurring her vision. You're not a shame. You're my mother. You had a life. I saw you on the news. With that woman, Mara. That's not what matters right now. It matters to me, her mother whispered. Because for the first time, you looked happy. And I didn't want to be the reason that stopped. Emily reached for her hand. You're not the reason. The world is cruel and complicated and unforgiving. But you're not the problem. Rebecca looked at her. I didn't want to ruin you. You didn't. But if you don't fight for yourself, this will ruin us both. Silence settled. Heavy. Emily sat with her until her mother drifted off again, then stepped into the hallway, where Mara was waiting. Their eyes met. She's okay, Emily said, voice cracked. It was a drink. Pills. She didn't mean for it to go this far. At least, I don't think she did. Mara stepped forward. You don't have to explain. I'm here. Why? Emily asked suddenly. Why are you here? After everything? Because you're not alone in this. Not anymore. Even if this gets worse? Especially if it does. Emily's eyes stung. I've never let anyone in during these moments. I've always dealt with it alone. It felt safer that way. Safe isn't the same as loved. That undid her. Emily collapsed into Mara's arms, silent tears soaking into her coat. And Mara held her like she'd been waiting to do it forever. When they left the hospital, The sky was still gray, but the rain had stopped. Mara offered to take Emily to her place. Emily shook her head. Not yet. So Mara walked her back to Claire's apartment and didn't push. Before she left, she brushed a thumb against Emily's cheek. If you need me, I'll call. I'll answer. But Emily didn't call that night. She sat with Claire on the couch, silent, watching reruns of shows she wasn't following. Her phone buzzed once. A message from Mara. She's strong. Like you. Emily stared at it for a long time, then typed back, I'm scared. Mara replied immediately. Then, be scared. But let me stand with you. Emily didn't answer. She couldn't. Not yet. The next morning, the press had a new angle. Her mother's hospital admission had leaked. The headline, Girlfriend of Billionaire found at rehab center with addicted mother. Public image crisis for Halden continues. Emily stared at the screen, while rising. I can't do this, she whispered. Claire grabbed the phone from her hand. You're not alone. You don't have to carry this. But Emily was already shaking. They're never going to stop. Then we give them a reason to. What does that even mean? You stop hiding. You own the truth. You say, yes, this is who I am. This is where I come from. And it doesn't make me weak. It makes me whole. Emily's mouth opened, then closed. And for the first time, she wondered if she could. If she should. If maybe the only way to stop them was to step into the fire herself. But would Mara still stand beside her when the flames came? Or would the price be too high? Emily stared at the headline until the words blurred into nothing. Her mother's life, reduced to gossip. Her pain, turned into clickbait. And Mara's name, always there, always wrapped around her own like a curse and a promise. She felt hollowed out. But beneath the nausea, beneath the fear, something new was rising.
Rage.
Not loud, not destructive, but clean, sharp. The kind of rage that doesn't burn, it clarifies. She stood up slowly, her voice calm when she spoke. I'm done letting them control the narrative. Claire watched her from the kitchen doorway, cautious. What are you thinking? I'm thinking I've been running my whole life.
From shame.
From my past. From being seen. But if they want to see me now, fine. Claire crossed her arms. What does that mean? It means I'm going to speak. To who? To everyone. And that was how, 48 hours later, Emily Taylor sat on the set of one of the largest talk shows in the country. Mara's PR team tried to stop it. The producers called it risky. Even Claire had her doubts. But Emily knew what she was doing. She wasn't here to beg for sympathy. She was here to reclaim her name. She wore a simple black blouse. No designer label. No borrowed elegance. Just herself.
Raw. Honest.
And when the lights came on and the host introduced her, the audience held its collective breath. Emily, the host, began gently, You've been the focus of intense media attention in the last few weeks. Many stories have surfaced about your personal life, your family. How are you feeling, sitting here now? Emily smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Terrified, but also strangely free. Why free? Because I've spent my entire life trying to be invisible, believing that if people knew the truth about where I came from, about my mother, about everything, I'd lose whatever worth they thought I had. But now that everything's out there, there's nothing left to hide. And maybe that's where real strength begins. The host nodded. Let's talk about your mother. The media has painted a harsh picture. Yes, Emily said. They found out about her past, her struggle with addiction, her time in treatment. But what they didn't report is that she's been clean for years, that she rebuilt her life one painful, quiet step at a time. And that relapse is part of recovery, not failure. She's the strongest person I know. And your relationship with Mara Halden? The question hung in the air like a loaded gun. Emily looked straight at the camera. Mara didn't destroy my life. She saved it. She saw me when I was doing everything I could not to be seen. She made me believe I was worth loving, not despite my past, but with it. Because of it. Loving her didn't ruin me. It revealed me. The audience was silent. Then someone clapped. Then more. The applause was real. Not for a soundbite, but for truth. After the show, Emily stepped outside into the blinding sun. She felt like she'd stepped out of a storm. And standing there, just beyond the gate, was Mara. Dressed in gray, sunglasses in hand, looking like she'd been holding her breath for days. Emily froze. Mara walked toward her. "You really did it." "I had to." "You were extraordinary," Mara said softly. "You were brave." "I was honest." "That's even harder." They stood there, caught in the gravity of each other. Mara's voice dropped. "Do you know what it did to me? Watching you speak those words, about your mother, about us?" Emily stepped closer. "I meant every one of them. Even the part where you said, 'I saved you'? Especially that part. Because I don't feel like a savior. I feel like a storm that came into your life and broke everything." "Then we'll rebuild it together," Emily whispered. "Brick by brick." Mara reached for her hand, held it tightly. "Come with me." "Where?" "Home." But the moment shattered before they could take a step. A voice behind them called out, sharp and familiar. "Miss Halden." It was a reporter. Then another. Then two more. Cameras. Microphones. Flashbulbs. "Is it true you're planning to sue your father? Are you stepping down from Halden Group permanently? Do you think your girlfriend's interview has jeopardized your corporate relationships?" Emily went stiff. Mara stepped forward, shielding her. "No comment." "Miss Taylor, do you have a response to the accusations that you exploited this relationship for media attention?" Emily's breath hitched. Her fingers curled into fists. Mara turned sharply. "Back off." "This is a public space," the reporter said. She put herself in the spotlight. Emily's body was shaking. Not from fear, but fury. "You want a quote?" she said suddenly. "Here it is. I didn't put myself in the spotlight. You dragged me into it. You took pieces of my life you didn't earn the right to touch. But I'm still standing. And I'm not going anywhere." Then she turned to Mara. "Let's go." They got into the car, and for a moment, neither spoke. The windows rolled up. The world faded out. "You didn't have to do that," Mara said quietly. "I did. Because I'm not hiding anymore." Mara reached over and laced their fingers together. "Neither am I." But as the car turned onto the highway, Mara's phone buzzed. A single notification. One email. Her expression changed. Emily noticed immediately. "What is it?" Mara's voice was calm.
Too calm.
"The board just met without me. They're filing a motion to remove me permanently." Emily's stomach dropped. "Because of the interview?" "Because I chose you." The car drove on. And for the first time since the beginning, it wasn't Emily's world on fire. It was Mara's. The next morning, the boardroom was silent as Mara Halden stepped inside, her heels clicking softly across the polished floor. The long mahogany table stretched before her like a battlefield. 12 men and women sat on either side, folders open, eyes unreadable. At the head, the chairman waited, hands folded, posture stiff. Mara didn't flinch. She wore a black suit, clean-cut, sharp, and her hair was pulled back.
Composed.
Controlled. But her eyes, they burned. "Before you proceed with your motion," she said, placing her bag on the table, "I'd like to say something." The chairman gestured, lips pursed. "You have 5 minutes." Mara looked at them all, her voice steady. "I built this company. I took the wreckage of what my father left behind and turned it into something real, profitable, ethical, respected. And I've done it while you watched, while you questioned my every decision, every expansion, every philanthropic venture. And still I delivered." Murmurs shifted around the table. "Now," Mara continued, "I fall in love. And you try to strip me of everything." "This isn't personal," the chairman interjected. "It's optics." "No," she said, calm but firm. "It's fear. You're afraid that vulnerability makes me weak. That love makes me reckless. That being human makes me unfit to lead. Public backlash is a risk. So is cowardice." Mara cut in. "And I won't apologize for being in love with someone who makes me better. Someone who grounds me, challenges me, believes in me when you don't. She took out a folder and slid it across the table. These are the Q3 projections under my leadership. Double-digit growth. Increased shareholder confidence. The numbers don't lie. You want to replace me?
Do it.
But you'll lose more than a CEO. You'll lose the one person in this room who never stopped believing that we could be more than another empire fueled by silence and shame. She stood back, chin high. Now vote. Silence. Then whispers. Shifting. One member raised their hand. I vote against removal. Another followed. Then two more. But the chairman's voice cut through the room. This company is built on perception. You've made your personal life public property. I didn't leak anything, Mara said. But I refuse to be ashamed of who I love just to protect your comfort. He hesitated. Then slowly he sat back. You retain your seat. But you're on probation. Effective immediately. Noted, Mara said. And when this probation ends, I expect a full reversal. That will depend on your behavior moving forward. Then watch closely, she said. Because I'm not going anywhere. She walked out without another word. Her hands were shaking when she reached the elevator. But her phone was already ringing. Emily. How did it go? She asked. I'm still CEO. A breath of relief passed through the line. But barely. Still counts. Where are you? On your front steps, Emily said. With coffee. Mara laughed, the first real laugh in days. I'm almost there. When she arrived, Emily stood with 2 paper cups, wind tossing her hair, eyes bright. Mara didn't speak. She just walked straight into her arms. They stood there for a long time, in the middle of the sidewalk, letting the world blur around them. You okay? Emily whispered. Not yet, Mara said. But you're here. So maybe I will be. What now? Now, Mara said, pulling back to look at her. We start over. But this time, we don't hide. And they didn't. The weeks that followed weren't easy. The media kept circling. Rumors continued. But Emily no longer shrank from them. She started writing. Small pieces, essays. About love, recovery, truth. Her story found resonance. And people listened. Mara fought her way through every board meeting, every whispered doubt. But she didn't bend. And slowly, the headlines changed. The noise softened. The fire cooled. One night, months later, they stood on the balcony of Mara's apartment, wine glasses in hand, city lights stretching out like a promise. You know what I've realized? Emily said, turning toward her. Tell me. This never should have started. Mara's brow furrowed. What? It was a mistake. The wrong table. The wrong night. Mara's eyes narrowed. Are you trying to ruin the moment? Emily smiled. Let me finish. She took a breath. It was all wrong. And somehow it gave me everything that was right. Mara stepped closer, brushing a thumb along her cheek. You were never a mistake. Neither were you. Mara's voice dropped.
So stay.
Not just tonight. Not just until the world forgets. Stay for good. Emily smiled, and for once, there was no hesitation. I'm not going anywhere. And under the soft glow of the city, with the wind wrapping around them and the noise of the world fading, they kissed.
Deeply.
Fully. Like every goodbye had been leading here. Like every storm had broken just so the light could find them. And it did. If you enjoyed this content and want to support the channel in a special way, try clicking the thanks button below. It's the one with the heart and $sign icon. With super thanks, you can make a direct contribution to the channel, which helps me keep creating awesome videos for you.